All right. We're going to call to order the Monday, April 28th meeting of the Airport Advisory Board, the regular meeting of the board. I would ask everybody, if they haven't already, to silence your phones, and we'll go ahead and get started with the meeting. Tammy, do you want to call the order for the roll?
Yes, and I just want to let you guys know that member Diaz is no longer a part of the Airport Advisory Board meeting. So we will be looking for a new member. If you guys know anybody looking, please have them apply with the city clerk's office.
Oh, okay.
And then Tim Caudell will be absent today.
Okay.
Okay.
So Chair Dempsey,
Here.
Vice Chair Starley,
Here.
Member Caudell, Member Lester,
Here.
Member Mabe.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any presentations on the agenda today?
No.
No presentations. Okay. Item number 3 is public input. This is an opportunity for citizens to come and address the board. It is a monologue, not a dialogue. We give 3 minutes for anyone that wants to come to the podium and talk to us about anything related to the airport. This is your opportunity to raise your hand and come forward now. No one? Okay. Consent agenda. The only item is considering the approval of the board meeting minutes from January 27th. I have read those and went through them, and I actually didn't make a single change to it. It was good. Good.
Wow.
Good to go.
Let's take a picture of that.
Let's take a picture of it. All right. So, do you want to?
Do we have a motion?
We need a motion to approve.
I so move. Second.
Okay.
All right. Chair Dempsey,
Approved.
Vice Chair Starley,
Yes.
Member Lester,
Yes.
Member Mabe.
Yes.
All right, we're just rocking right along here. Item number 5 is our regular meeting update on airport noise abatement. And Barb, are you going to do that, or is?
All right, thank you, Chair Dempsey, and thank you to everyone for being here today. As for the noise abatement efforts here at the airport, our work goes on. We've been meeting with EPIC, and the airport have been meeting now for about 2 years, monthly. Our noise abatement officer, EPIC noise abatement officer, Alexis, who's here today, is doing a good job with education, and the numbers seem to reflect that. That's not an easy job, with the new students coming in on board continuously, but the team there recognizes how important it is, and so their efforts continue to pay off. So here's some reports that we have. This shows the number of flyovers over inlet shores. We track this by using our VERTOWER program, and which can allow us to see how many flights actually flew over. One of the things that we reviewed today or this month with EPIC was the amount of flyovers has increased, but all of the flyovers by EPIC actually were approved by the tower or requested by the tower. So, and a lot of that is because of the current construction on Taxiway Bravo, runway 725, with the runway closure of 1129. That's required those flyovers at some point just because of the request by ATC. Going on to the next page here, just reflecting, this is the percentage of operations, total operations compared to the inlet shores flyovers. So when you look at that number of 0.9%, that's a reflection of, say, 121 out of 13,000 or whatever operations for the month. Again, we talked about there was an increase in flyovers. However, a review of those flyovers, every single one was authorized or requested by ATC. So none of them were as a result of somebody accidentally flying over. And then this graph just shows how many touch and goes are conducted outside of the VNAP, meaning after hours or before hours, as per the voluntary noise abatement program. So for example, in March, there were 2. That pilot was counseled by Epic, and see, there was only 2, so that's a pretty low number. And it just goes back to that continual education efforts that they have. One of the
If you look at the 23 and 24 numbers, these have definitely gone down pretty dramatically for 2025.
So one of the things that we have decided, and one of the challenges to our noise abatement program, is having enough resources, mainly time, to review the data. Now, while there's a lot of effort being, as you can see from Epic's side, our side of the house being, only the 3 of us in the office with a lot of things to review, it is time consuming for us. We have the tools to look at the noise abatement program software, but it has to be reviewed. You have to look at it, and then you also have to listen to the air traffic control tapes to kind of verify what happened. So through the former member, Chaylee Diaz, who actually resigned today, through her, I made contact with Allison Austin, who is the executive director for Embry-Riddle's Professional Development Center. We discussed the potential for an internship here at the airport. This is something this is new to us. We have not previously had an intern, although maybe many years back, but since I've been with the airport, we have not. So I'm excited to announce we've actually narrowed the candidates down to 2. We have made an offer to one of the candidates. We have not confirmed a start date, but the focus of that internship would be to review all of the flights that are occurring at the airport other than Epic. So Epic accounts for 80% of the traffic-ish, roughly. So the remaining of those flights sometimes get reviewed, don't get reviewed as frequently as we would like. So we need a little help. So we thought, well, what if we get an internship? What if we partner with Embry-Riddle? This allows us to not only get a little bit more, another set of eyes on this particular issue, as well as bring somebody on board who might have a fresh perspective on other issues that are facing the airport. So it's a win-win for both the student, who may be, one of our students is a graduate student, or one of the applicants is a graduate student. Both of them are either in their master's or graduate program, so they're looking to further their knowledge about airports and how they work. And so we're excited about that. So more to come next time, but I think that was probably the bigger update this month as far as what's changed. Continuing to find new ways to address this issue and pay attention to it. I would also give you a small update on the efforts we had last year to make some updates to our voluntary noise abatement program. As you know, we put your recommendations in front of the City Commission back in November. The item was pulled, and we are at the moment reviewing a date where we can put those back on the agenda. So I expect that will be going on in the next month or so, back in front of them for approval. There was a lot of things that happened towards the end of the year and the beginning of the year, and it took some time to get this issue back in front of them. So, any questions on the noise report for this month?
I have a question. Do you see any impact from the current construction on the decrease that we're seeing in these events, touch and goes outside of VNAP and the flyovers?
Have we seen, I didn't catch the first part of the question, I'm sorry.
Do you see, is the construction that's currently underway, is that driving these numbers a little bit?
Yes, it is. Well, it is driving the numbers of the flyovers, for sure, over Inland Shores. Because of the runway not being available, 1129 not being available, runway 220 has been used a lot, typically a lot more than it would be this time of year. So that's something that has contributed, yes.
Okay.
Has not necessarily resulted in any additional complaints, though. We've received basically the same amount. It's about average for this time of year.
Well, being a resident of Inlet Shores, it's obvious to me that every once in a while we'll get the odd event where an aircraft will turn and comes right down the driveway, literally. Okay, and I'm assuming that's ATC directed.
It has been for our review this past month, yes.
Okay, all right. Do we have a start date for the intern?
No, we're working that out as we speak. I've sent a letter of an offer, and we have not confirmed the details.
Okay, all right. Anything else on noise abatement?
I don't have anything else.
Questions? Sure. I will say this, we had our spring picnic at Inlet Shores this past Saturday, and we had a really good crowd there. I got maybe 2, 3 comments. Most of it was about the construction and what's going on, but no real pushback on noise at all.
Good.
So that's good.
Good.
That's very good. All right. So that takes care of item number 5. No old business. No new business. And that brings us to airport manager comments. Who's going to take that?
I'll take that. I'll start that off. Well, we were just want to remind everybody, just in the interest of time, we're going to try to get through this as quick as we can and not get too mired down, and then maybe save your comments till the end, and then we can review everything in total.
I think that works.
So just a reminder that our mission to serve our community as the Aeronautical Gateway, providing users with safe, first-class aviation facilities while promoting economic development. So we try to keep that in the forefront of everything we do, to keep that our focus and to keep ourselves on task. We're going to talk about several things today, starting off with the RVA contract, just to give you an update on the Hurricane Milton repairs. We had a recent land lease RFP, and also talk a little bit about other development opportunities, talk a little bit about the recent survey we did on our approaches, wildlife mitigation, capital improvement projects, talk a little bit about Jack Bolt, and our current airport trends. So I did ask our new tower manager to attend today, but he had a conflict. This afternoon he was actually working a position. I know that this is a subject that we brought up at the last AAB, and I know there was concerns about the staffing levels, and specifically how the new staffing levels might affect service or safety. I want to kind of point out and start this by saying, Scott, in our time together, as he's been working, nonstop, and I think he's been doing a great job, and I want to express my appreciation for handling, staffing challenges. He's had some retiring controllers. He's got the airport construction. We had a major aircraft incident, and he handled all that. And I think the end result, even though, we still have some concerns, I do want to point out and just acknowledge his efforts that, we're not saying this is all just gone away and that we're all happy and everything's fine, but I want to point out that his hard work has made it seem seamless to the users. We haven't had complaints, we haven't had service issues, and so that does speak to how hard he is working. I want to express that appreciation. So a couple of the points that he wanted me to share with you, and I think he apologizes and would like to be here today, but he wanted me to share that is that adequate staffing and watch coverage continues to be one of the major challenges he's faced since assuming the position. Both as a result of RVA's decision to cut the authorized staffing number back in January 2025, and from normal attrition due to anticipated retirements. There's 2 retirements since the beginning of April, and there's a 3rd coming up in August. The positive action on the staffing front is that he's welcoming a new air traffic control specialist to the team on Monday. That's today. And then a second air traffic control specialist was hired on Friday to begin sometime in July. So both come to RVA after retiring from careers in the FAA, and both were assigned to Daytona Beach at one time. So they bring some familiarity with the operation here in New Smyrna Beach. And that's kind of the nice thing about a lot of the controllers, is that they'll retire in Daytona, and then they've come here into New Smyrna.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Can I ask the board members, if you would, if we're going to go all the way to the end before we ask questions, and make notes. make a list of questions on each item so that we get to the end, and that's the only way I can do it. I don't mind doing it this way to make the meeting speed along, but I also want to make sure that everyone on this board has opportunity to make a note of their questions so that we can get you at the end.
Sure.
Okay? So.
So the training process takes about 30 days to get facility certification. So in the interim, his staffing levels, they're challenged until he can get these other folks certified. But he wants to be clear and express that in no way service or safety are to be compromised. So, and he's going to be transparent from the standpoint of the operation and to our customers, to the airport, and to the users. Another one of the big updates has to do with equipment upgrades. Their terminal, standard terminal approach radar system, STARS as they call it, it's undergoing an upgrade. So the benefits are mostly to the hub facility in Daytona, but the upgrades will also benefit the operation here. So things that include a larger radar display in the tower, which is going to help them facilitate improvements in displaying weather, added information to aircraft data blocks, and enhanced system performance, coordination capabilities, safety. All that software portion of the upgrade is slated to begin in June 2025, with the hardware integration scheduled to begin in July of 2026. So kind of over the next year or so. So again, I know that we want to come back to this. I know we want to talk a little bit more about that. If you all would prefer, since this is kind of a big issue, if you feel necessary, we could break now so we don't have, because we are going to completely change gears and talk about capital improvements. So if you prefer.
So you want to change gears and get our comments on RVA?
Well, if you'd prefer, because for what your comment just now was, I thought maybe it would be best if there's going to be a lot.
Well, I have some concerns here. First thing, if they're not going to be here till the end of July, and we've got all of May and June to go through, that will give the users of the airport, tenants and commercial users, some time to get some experience with RVA and the tower now, okay? Should we consider some type of survey to the users, both commercial and citizen tenants, that on their feedback about how I just don't want RVA to come in here and give us a presentation on what their financials are and how many people they have. I want them to come in here and talk specifically about our airport. So would it make any sense for us to get some feedback before they come that we can, see how the users think they're doing versus what they tell us how they think they're doing? Just one thought, okay? Another one is we should kind of give them some guidance on coming in here and doing a presentation to us because, again, I don't want to hear their financials and total number of employees and stuff like that. I want to hear real deal stuff about what they're doing for our airport. So just a couple of thoughts from my perspective of having them come in. What would you see as the best way to approach that? Do you guys agree with that?
I'm not sure I do in this respect. What I just heard is that we've got 3 retirements coming up. We've got people that are going to be undergoing training. And at the same time, RVA, prior to all of this occurring, has made a determination that they're going to reduce the staffing levels from what was approved. That in and of itself gives me concern because we've got the volume of traffic going up. It makes no conceptual sense, and if one looks at the history of these sorts of things having been done in the industry, when you reduce staff, when you've got volume going up, that's a hazard. We have inherent hazards to this airport. This is complicated airspace. It's, you've got a Class C cab above us. We've got multiple runways. We've got multiple taxiways crossing multiple runways. All of this we've got considerable traffic. We've got a mix of traffic. We've got jet traffic coming in, mixed with GA traffic, mixed with your general aviation traffic, mixed with helicopter traffic. We've got a good volume of VFR traffic going up and down the coast. I have experience flying into some of the most busy airports in the world, and I find this one to be a challenge myself. So I don't think it's reasonable to wait for these people to come in and explain what their safety management program looks like, whether or not in making their staffing determinations they have done an adequate risk analysis, a formal safety risk analysis, and really what sort of forethought has gone into them actually deciding to cut their staffing back while the volume of our airport is going up, and then adding all these complication factors that we've just heard about. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we ask for a special meeting to be conducted within the next 30 days and have these people come in and give us a presentation on the safety and risk assessment that they've done in making the decision that they've made.
If you guys want to move forward with that, we won't need a motion. I'll just need consensus from you guys.
Do you want a motion on that? First of all, I'd like to check with you guys and see, is that, in your experience with RVA, is that a reasonable request?
The time frame? That I can't speak to. I know that when I invited him to this meeting, it was right after our last meeting, and they were unable to attend this one. But there is no. We
And
can
that was
certainly
right
make,
after
we
Jim
can certainly
left,
make
too.
the request.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's 35 days or whatever, it's it's the earliest. Maybe it's your earliest convenience kind of a thing. I don't know. Just to say how urgent we feel this matter is, and
Well, that's kind of where I was going with what I was saying. And we want them to come in specifically and address specific things.
Yeah, I'm concerned the fact that they were invited and they say, oh, we can't come in July is an indication to me that this hasn't been given the level of scrutiny that it needs to be given by upper management. And with all of the things that I've mentioned, they're all risk factors. And I'm concerned that proper risk mitigation has not occurred. And I'd really like to hear from the people that are running that organization something that gives me confidence that I've misjudged the situation.
And that they have taken those risks into account when they made these decisions. And I want to make sure I'm clear. In January, we were effectively down one controller because they did not replace a retirement, correct?
Yeah.
So the new manager has to now be a working controller. And then we're going to have 3 more leave and only 2 to replace. Is that correct?
yeah. So this is the way that I understand it. First of all, we have Jim left. Jim was. And Scott was working a shift. He was working a position. So when Jim left and they promoted Scott, they did not allow him to, they promoted him up and gave him, 6 weeks or so to come off his position without allowing him to backfill his own position. Yeah. So that was a shortage initially. And then let's see, January is when he started. And then so since then, there's been 2 retirements since the beginning of April. So we've had 2, so that's 3, and then there's another one coming in August. So he's hired 1, and then he's hired a second one. So, but yeah, we're still behind the curve.
So we're behind 2. We're behind 2 effectively right now. And I mean,
Plus-
the new ones aren't even trained yet.
Plus the fact that they have to train new people in the course of all of this, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I heard. And the other thing I heard, could you reiterate the reason why the tower manager isn't here?
He said his schedule he said he was not available.
He's working in shift, is that what I heard you say?
This afternoon, he was working a
Working a
shift. Whether
shift,
he,
okay. So
whether he is
he's-
working right now, I don't know.
So he's
But he
working the
was.
backfill that didn't occur?
He will cover he will cover occasionally, here and there, yeah. He's playing a little gymnastics to make sure that they're not actually short, but being creative with it, if we will. How long that will last,
And it's important to note that some of these other positions are part-time, so like some people have only been working maybe 1 day a month, so it's not, you say lose a part-time position is not great, but it's not the full-time position. So the full-time position is the one that we're down the one. The part-time, their schedules vary, so he's been able to work it where they're still been fully staffed for, most of the time, apart from Sundays because of the voluntary noise abatement kind of allows for less traffic, so he can make it work. He's a little more flexibility on Sundays, so to some extent that's been helpful. So it would be just good to note that it's not that we're going to be down 2 or 3 full-time positions. It would be just the one still, which is not great by any means. But Scott has been doing, like Arvin said, some gymnastics to make this work. And so hopefully we do get some kind of resolution or some information from RVA, and maybe we can make our case to hopefully get back up to that. But that was
Yeah.
just a good thing to note.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's only one full-time position. So everybody else is job share. They call it job share, but effectively they're part-time. So 20 hours or less.
Okay. I think that it's important that we go back to RVA based on, Jim had some wonderful comments there, and I think they're very well thought out. But I think we need to go back to RVA with specific concerns, exactly what Jim just raised, and let them know that we appreciate that you guys had some conflicts, but we have very specific concerns about operational safety at our airport because of the staffing of the tower. And is it possible for you to help these guys a little bit, put a communication together to go to RVA and list some of those specific concerns, specifically what kind of safety analysis have you done, okay, given where we are with the airport today versus where it was in the past, those kinds of things, and then put that back to them and see how soon they can come back to us, and if we need to convene for a meeting, special meeting to do that, we can do that. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well stated.
So the guidance to the airport staff is to put this communication together based on the comments that Jim just made, and you've got those recorded, I think.
Yes.
So we know what those are. You had some really good points there. Let's do that and let them know that we've met as a board. We understand the tower manager couldn't come. They're telling us they can't come for 2 more months. That's unacceptable, okay? We want you guys to get back to us on how quickly you can come and meet with us, and we want you to be prepared to address these specific concerns. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You guys are good?
Well stated.
Okay. And we don't need a motion for that?
Don't need a motion, we just need a consensus, and we
Okay.
definitely have that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Anything else on this topic before we?
I think you covered it pretty well.
No, I'm good. I had a couple of questions here for RVA, that's all of them, so we're good.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so moving on to, we're going to go over some updates for Hurricane Milton, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob.
So most of the concerns in the past that had come up from Hurricane Milton have been addressed. We just have a large few remaining items. And that's 404 United Drive, which is one of the hangars at American Aero, one of their 4 hangars that they have. It's the one that has their workshop and various other activities for support their business. So that building was hit pretty hard, and it's taken some time between the engineers and the insurance company to kind of sort out the best path forward. And it's going to take not only insurance, but some additional funding from the airport itself to get that building back to where it needs to be. And it had obviously had some issues before, and so we're getting to correct those issues as well as the repairs from the hurricane. So currently we're waiting on the engineer to finish his design for the upgrades to the building that will give it, a good life in terms of revenue generation. And so that would really, what we're looking at doing is upgrading the doors from a sliding to without getting too into the details, but we're just going to be upgrading the doors to a hydraulic versus sliding, putting a new roof on, some siding. It's going to be kind of a pseudo rehab in conjunction with the repair from the hurricane. So presently, we're expecting the design to be done in the next couple of weeks, get the drawings over to the contractor, and the contractor, kind of let him loose, and their staff let them loose on getting that repair done. And, very rough time frame. I'd say best case scenario, this is done September. Worst case scenario, obviously, after that. So that's kind of where that building is, and we're pushing that along as quickly as we possibly can, and so that's our goal, is to get that. It'd be ideal to get it done before the hurricane season, but at this time frame, I don't see that happening. So we're just working to get that completed. The next is T-Hangar E, which affects 16 of our tenants, well, actually 14, because two of the units we haven't filled yet. Just didn't want to put people into a building that was being worked on. So we've got a couple of open hangars in there that will hopefully fill in the coming months. But that building, it had some wind damage as well that did a lot of different things to the building. So we are going to be replacing a lot of, currently I think almost halfway done. The north side of the building, they're putting on the galvanized steel pieces that were damaged. And once that's completed, which we're thinking that should be the middle of May, I worked with the insurance company and the contractor to try and get them to compress their timeline as much as possible, because I know that's an inconvenience to the tenants. And obviously we've got a waiting list that we want to fill those hangars with people. So I'm looking at middle of May for that north side, and then after that would probably be 6 to 8 weeks on the south side to do the demolition of what's damaged, and then the installation of what needs to be going in. Again, I'm trying to bring that up as quickly as possible, but that does have movement. We are working on that. They did add some staff to try and compress that timeline, but I do send out emails to the tenants, and I hope that if they have any other questions, they certainly can call. Some do, some will reach out. So I try to keep them as informed as possible so that they kind of know what's happening. I understand, I've been in those hangars. I've been in and out of those hangars for years. I know how frustrating that can be if you're inconvenienced. So I appreciate their patience on that. But that's the two main items from that. Everything else has been addressed from that storm, and I just pray that the upcoming season is as nice to us as it can be.
How many units got smushed from the
What?
hurricane? How many? What do we lose?
We have not displaced any tenants because of damage to the building. It was more so there was some doors pushed in and stuff that was fixed pretty quickly, and none of the tenants have been displaced from their hangars, and that was kind of my main goal, was to not displace anybody, other than the fact we're not able to fill 2 units, which is unfortunate. But at the moment, we've not had to prevent anybody from getting to their airplane.
Okay.
Well, since you interrupted, I'm going to. The Hurricane Milton was October of 24, early October 24, October 10th or 11th, something like that. So we've experienced a number of them. You guys have experienced. Is what we're seeing with trying to recover Aero Services and Hangar E, is that kind of consistent with our past experience with recovering from hurricane damage, or was this really bad?
So for this,
We're 6 months.
in the 3 years that I've
And
been
we won't
there,
be done before next hurricane season, is what I'm getting at here.
this storm was more damaging than Ian. As hard as it is to believe, I think it was for me. I think Milton was definitely more damage for us.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of little things with this. I mean, Milton was certainly more work and has been more work. Ian we were able to get back, because it really didn't do a lot of damage to the larger buildings, that was structural, things, or things that had to involve structural upgrades. So I can't say that there was a baseline established, because this is just entirely different of an animal. However, I would say that in my experience with working with contractors and organizing, not only with government agencies, insurance, and then obviously with our tenants, this has been a much quicker of a process than I think I anticipated. So I want to take that as a positive.
Okay.
I would, certainly it would be great if this kind of stuff could happen overnight. But, that's the challenge too. And also FEMA's involved with this. And, that storm had enough damage across the state. That's just bogged a lot of things down. I would say that we are fortunate because of the contractors we have, because of the insurance company we have. It's a much faster repair than probably otherwise could have happened. So, I would think that we're probably right where we need to be. Yes, it has been some time since October, and we did get a temporary wall up for Gary and his business, so that way their items are still secure. And fortunately for that building, the work that they do in that building doesn't require constant in and out, so they've not really been necessarily, yes, they've not been able to move some things in and out as easily, but, we've done some things to try and mitigate their inconvenience as much as possible. Same with the T-hanger tenants. So, we are pressing that timeline. We're trying to compress as quickly as possible, but I do think for this, I think it has been better than I anticipated.
Just had to ask a question.
Sure.
When I look at the timeline there. Okay, continue. please.
All right, so a couple things on airport development. So about a couple months ago, we had released an RFP, request for proposal, and the intent was to award a qualified and experienced developer to finance, design, and construct, potentially even manage some aviation facilities and also non-aeronautical aviation facilities. So on this map you see here, there's 4 locations. This is from like an airport layout plan. So there's 4 locations that were identified in this RFP. 3 had aviation access, 1 did not. So the one all the way to the south, or the bottom, that large rectangle, that was a non-aeronautical use site, so that'd be for industrial use. And then the other 3, including the one all the way to the right in the middle, that's the one off US 1, and then there was 2 over by American Aero. So we did receive 2 potential business applicants responded. They provided general information as the proposal required. Both proposals had very interesting business ideas, and both could be considered in the future as a tenant for office space, but neither one had qualifications or demonstrated financial capability to actually construct or develop the locations themselves. Both were relatively new startup businesses, and so we were excited to receive them, but unfortunately it didn't match with what we were looking for. However, I still think this was a step in the right direction, as we had an RFP in the past that was released twice and got no responses. So we're definitely, I think, getting a little bit closer. We are, there are 2 points that I want to make in addition to this RFP. We had, I know in the last AAB meeting, we had a developer that came and gave a brief presentation to you all, if you all remember that. He subsequently reached out to the city manager and had a meeting with him and the mayor and discussed this project in a little bit more detail. He indicated kind of what his goals were, and I think where he's at now is he has to look at this and determine what environmental roadblocks might be there because of where he's looking to develop. And for those people who are in the room or listening who may not be aware of what a through the fence is, so that is what the FAA refers to when an operator owns property that's adjacent to an airport that wants access to the airport but does not actually have own airport land themselves. So there is some land in the industrial area, which is on the south kind of middle of the airport, that is not owned by the city, that is owned by private landowners, but none of them have, well, except for one. There's one that does have a current through the fence agreement, but none of the other ones actually have access to the airport. So what this operator wants to do is, or this landowner wants to develop and build hangars and then pay the airport a fee, enter into an agreement, a through-the-fence agreement, which is required by the FAA in order for this to be approved. So there's a lot of roadblocks to that, but just kind of wanted to provide an update as to where that stands right now. It's nowhere near, coming to pass, but it is something right now the developer is looking at to see what actual roadblocks would be there in terms of the environmental impacts.
Is he still in contact with you? That's the same guy that came a couple of times ago?
It's the same owner. So the owner is not the one that came here. I think that was like a representative of his. The owner is, yes. I mean, I have not talked to him since our meeting. I think at this point they're doing their due diligence on the environmental and the historical, so the archaeological impact. So there is a historical canal that runs through his property that was dug by the Mallorcans, and there's some protections to that. So in fact, that's one of the things that affects the airport. So it affects our development, is that, and we have to study that, and so that's a roadblock to even the airport doing development ourselves in some areas of the airport, especially on that southern tip. So also related to development, the airport is in what's known as the CRA, which is the Community Redevelopment Act. That's money that the county and the city put in together, and we actually have some funding that just became available. It's another bucket of money that we're able to put towards airport beautification, airport infrastructure. So we're looking at several projects, including updating perimeter fencing, updating landscaping and signage around the entrance of the airport, not only at the main entrance, but also at the back entrance in the industrial area, and replacing septic tank systems with sewer systems, fiber, and also probably one of the biggest ones is actually looking at a site or two, getting it ready with infrastructure, pad-ready sites, so they're just ready to build a hangar on. And so this money will allow us to do that. So really exciting stuff coming very quickly in the next few months as we start looking for ways to continue to develop here at the airport and present opportunities for developers. As you know, we recently did an instrument. This is a member, member Caudell, recently asked that we put out a survey to see what users think of our current instrument approaches and also the approaches that they would like to see. As Jacob is a commercial pilot, I'm going to let him kind of talk about this a little bit more intelligently than I can, but just kind of go over the survey a little bit, what we found, and also what's available.
Okay, so yeah, this was a summary again of the larger report, but the main themes that came from the 19 responses was, pilots would like to have an LPV for all available approaches, which is understandable. Obviously you can get some lower minimums from that, and it's got the performance of a precision approach, and so that allows for other things. We had one of the DPEs from Epic stop by and mentioned specifically why like an LPV on 7 would be great. And if you look in that bottom left-hand corner there, you have what current available approaches we have. The yellow indicates what does have an LPV, and the red is indicating that runway is not lit. But so 7 presently does not have an LPV approach. And so where that comes into an issue is on many days where there's an easterly wind and they're trying to complete a instrument check ride. They can't try and do a precision performance-based approach when that happens at New Smyrna, so they have to go to like a Daytona or somewhere to do that. And if you've flown in the area enough, you know that getting into Daytona's airspace is some days can be a task. So, that would be convenient for them, but also for the sake of, having that. So the path to go down that, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but the summaries are an addition of approaches for runway 11. Presently there is not one, obviously visual, but there's not an instrument approach into 11, so that's something that would like to be added. And then addition for night approaches for 220, and, that runway's not lit, so that's kind of, you got to put the horse before the cart in that situation. And so, that's a whole other thing. So basically for us, we're trying to put into a priority list, well, how could we piece some of these things, faster rather than just trying to get bogged down. So for us, I think the easiest low-hanging fruit may be the LPV for runway 7. And we've got a contact with Flight Standards to try and figure that out. So we're going to send some information or the questions to him. He's been helpful in the past when we ask some questions. So hopefully we can maybe get some direction on how to request that specifically and what verbiage is the best way to kind of get that ball rolling. All that also to say is that, with the cuts happening at the federal level, currently that's slowing down a lot of responses from the FAA. So I would just want to manage expectations by saying that, this isn't something that would happen overnight. I think we all probably already realize that, but I think it's good to say. And so, yes, we'll put the request in and see what kind of possibilities are for that. Not only the LPV for the approaches, but the runway 11 approach. That's got some other challenges with it because of some obstructions that we don't own. Some of the land that has trees going into that obstructions that may be caused. So again, there's steps to this. It's much like anything, and especially when you're involving various government agencies, it can get really fun really quick. And then for the addition of night approaches for 220, that call all goes to now we need to get that runway either funded by us or potentially maybe the FAA if we can get that to work. And then, adding lights, and then we can probably get to that point. So many steps to this. And so, for us, again, we'll try to hit that low-hanging fruit with the LPV for 7 and hope maybe, the ones that, to just make sure that we have, LPV, and then we can address and make sure any of the approaches, other approaches that we have, maybe there's a way to get those minimums lowered in any way, shape, or form. That would be great. So that's kind of, in summary, trying to take the responses, the main things that people are asking about, and seeing, okay, now that we have those, how can we prioritize those? How can we work with the FAA to make that a reality? So it's kind of a goal for us, and it's a good goal because I think that's a nice technical goal to have that would be helpful and not just something to do with random infrastructure at the airport. This is something that pilots would see an immediate kind of thing for. Obviously, another one was, having night approaches back on 7 and 25. I think we've already somewhat addressed that because the work that's happening on Taxiway Bravo and the runway ends, once that's done, all that's kind of in place. The whole goal with that is to hopefully, when that project is complete, to kind of turn the switch back on and get those night approaches back for 7 and 25. That's they've done the AGIS on that, and they're reviewing all that. So again, the whole point of that is so that the timeline works. Once the project is done, great, here are your night approaches back. And so that was one I didn't put it on here because that one we already kind of addressed, but that will be happening, as this project wraps up that we have.
Getting an easterly approach would be, obviously, at least one easterly approach would be great. Are there other particular problems with 11, whether it's obstructions or Daytona airspace or anything, or is 7 just your preferred choice?
So, with 7, we do have, I think it's an LNAV, that's for 7. 11, yeah, that's a good point too. With Daytona's airspace, and you got Spruce Creek that would probably go right over Spruce Creek. I don't know. That might be just thinking through that at the moment. If that does go right over Spruce Creek, that's probably a tough shot. But again, there's not, if you don't ask, the answer is no. So it's kind of, what can we do to try and resolve this if we can? And then at least we'll have answers to give not only you, but the tenants that ask those questions. And so better to know than to not know.
Great. Can you elaborate a little bit on the potential for lighting 2 and 20?
Yeah, so that's that one's a long shot and a long time away potentially. So there is right now no justification for needing a runway 220. We still have it. It's the original pavement from 1945, whenever they last paved it, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. And if you have, you guys have taken off on that runway. It is not the most smooth ride by any means. I know that for me, it just get thrown around. So with that being said, it does still pass FDOT state inspections when they come out. And, we monitor it to make sure, it does generate some FOD. We'll work on that to try and keep it as clean as we can. But in the long term, no, it's not FAA funded at the moment. The FAA or the FDOT would help us fund it at an 80% level, which is incredible. But, these projects can range depending on the size of the runway. If it gets shortened, less wide, all these different things, it can range millions of dollars. I'll tell you that. I don't have an exact figure, but it can be millions of dollars. So 20% of millions of dollars is lots of money. And just at 20%. So if we get the FAA to fund it, and at that point we would need a capacity study. So these are some things that we're trying to put in. We're trying to get that. We're trying to get a master plan done next year so we can do a capacity study on runway 20, so that for that runway we maybe could justify it based on these most recent numbers we've had, as in last year just having shy of 190,000 operations. The goal there is, that's a beautiful thing to have those operations, because at that point maybe we could justify, hey, we've got this capacity, we meet these FAA needs, or that show that we need that runway. And so especially during the winter time when we have very northerly winds that require a lot of usage on that runway. So with all that, maybe if we can get it funded by the FAA, and then if we can push for lighting, that would be kind of the, ideal situation. Not to say that that's entirely probable, but it's possible. So that's our goal. That's the kind of thing that we're stressing to the FAA. And if we can't, if the FAA won't fund it, okay, at that point, this is at the FDOT's level. Now, what can we do as New Smyrna to try and afford that? I don't know if that's car washes out on the street or what, but we'll have to do something to try and afford that if it's indeed a need that the tenants want, and it's something that we can justify not only from the FDOT's perspective, but from our perspective. How is it useful for us? Is that going to be useful for us, the city, the airport, to maintain that runway? Because all the infrastructure that goes to that runway, taxiways, all that costs money as well. So, it's just going into all the cost analysis of that and, all these needs. We'd love to keep as many runways as we can. So that's what we want to do. But all that to say that, that lighting is kind of at the very end of that. But that's something we'd like.
Can I ask one thing before we leave approaches? What can we do now or in the near future to accelerate the reapproval of night approaches to 725?
Well, what we're doing.
We've got this, we're running hard with all this construction right now, and we have a point that we can see where we're going to be able to meet the FAA's requirements for that runway as far as safety area and everything else. Is there anything that we could or should be doing now so that when we're done with all of that construction, shortening each end, taxiways, et cetera, so that we get the approval for night approaches back as quickly as we can?
We are doing that. In fact, so that's what we've given direction to our consulting firm to do, is to make sure that we are as close to as possible. Whether they're going to have to, they have to fly it, they have to do, surveys, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So that we can, as closely as possible. But again, we're at the mercy, even if once we submit all that, then it's the FAA has to look at it, approve it. So, but we absolutely,
You're on top of it.
We're on top of it.
Get it, good. That's what we want. Okay, was that it?
Anything else on instrument approaches?
Okay. Anybody up here?
All right. Moving on to wildlife mitigation. So we won't talk too much about this, but one of the things that we've done is, as we've met with our police department, as you know, we have a wildlife hazard mitigation program that does allow for the request of a Florida an FWC depredation permit, which will allow us to take wildlife if we have to, harass, et cetera. We have not done that only because of just so we felt it was in the best interest in discussing it with the city, felt it is in the best interest to contract some of that work out. So currently we have on the upcoming city commission agenda is an item for an approval of an agreement with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the airport to handle that for us, outsource that. So if we have, say, a coyote issue, they come in and help us with that. If we have a bird issue, they come in and help us with that. And they're the experts, so we work hand in hand with them. And if it gets to the point where we see, hey, this is requiring more than that, then we would, of course, revisit that and see what we need to do. But our efforts locally will be focused on harassment. So whether those are bangers, screamers, pyrotechnics, that type of thing. And last year we had 9 bird strikes. All of them were pretty minor except for the one when we did hit a turtle. I'm sorry, it was 9 wildlife strikes, not just birds. There was a turtle that was struck by an aircraft, and we had, I think, was it a hawk? Or I'm sorry, it was a turkey vulture or something like that. There was one large, and I think that was on a downwind. We've had a couple so far this year, pretty small, but those have been reported. But it takes a while for that data to come back to us. So I was going to put a link out, but there is a link if you Google if you're interested. You can look at any airport bird strike information by going to the FAA database, and they have all the bird strikes that you can look. You can look at any airport. You can see how many there are in the state of Florida, et cetera. So there's all those statistics out there. So that's coming. I just wanted to give you an update on that. So we've got some capital improvement projects to go over really quickly. Just here is a screenshot and providing this update on the fuel farm. I also wanted to just kind of acknowledge the work that Jacob has done with our local fire departments over the course of several days. We had 2 different departments, both New Smyrna Beach Fire Department and Edgewater Fire Department, brought their firefighter crews out, and they got a comprehensive tour of the airport. These first responders came out, and Jacob went through the air traffic control tower. He went through the fuel farm. He took them on the runways. They became familiar with our airport layout and kind of the response procedures for when there is an alert. I think it's important to note that these folks actually come out on a fairly regular basis when we have an alert. This isn't things that make the news. It's not, an actual crash, but it's, when we have a gear indication issue or we have whatever it may be, an aircraft, has some kind of an issue, and hey, we might need you just in case. So they're there time and time and time again, and we're just really fortunate to have them and appreciate our first responders. Of course, we did have an issue in the last few months where there was an actual aircraft that departed the runway, and these guys were here within, just minutes. So just want to acknowledge them. So getting back to the fuel farm itself, we are close to having the tank itself. It's being they're starting to build it, or very close to starting to build it. So we're still a few months out from it actually arriving and being on site. Once that happens, we will not have self-serve fuel. We'll have only full-service fuel for a couple months. But this is a project that we've been talking about for a very long time. And just know that it is short. By the summer, we should have this rolling. Taxiway Bravo, we touched on that just a little bit ago. Here's a picture of Jacob and our contracting services on-site supervisor looking at this project. So we're about 60 days into a 200 calendar day project. The current area of work is on Taxiway Bravo between runway 7 and west of Taxiway Alpha. The work has slowed in the past week or so while the contractor addressed some issues with grading, and those issues have been addressed, and work is expected to pick back up today and tomorrow as they use a newer piece of equipment to provide a little bit greater detail, the detail that they needed. They're reworking some of the lime rock base, and they're repouring some concrete drainage with potential paving starting next week in that area. And so the way this project works is you'll have a phase where a whole section is closed down. If they have to completely get it, it's not where you can just close like one lane of traffic. I mean, they're just doing a whole section at a time so that we only impact like one runway at a time. So once this project phase is complete, we'll be going on to the next phase, which will be I believe we're closing 725, if I remember correctly. But appreciate all the users' patience as we work through this. Here's a little aerial that we were able to capture in coordination with the tower, and got a drone shot of the area. You can see where they had put some of the sealant down. They actually had to go back. This is while work was paused last week, while they were kind of reconfiguring what they were going to do. But you can see drainage work is done. Once the paving is complete next week, the electricians are going to come back in, and they're going to install the taxiway run edge lights and lighting arresters. Once that's done, there'll be some striping. We have to make sure that runways 1129 is good to go with, they have to restripe that a little bit on the numbers because they cut through right where the numbers are. And so that'll be done before we open that up, or before we move on to the next phase. We have to get this completely done. So last Tuesday, the City Commission approved the second grant amendment to accept another $1.25 million from FDOT, totaling a $2.5 million grant for funding of the admin building. And we're getting very close to getting this project out to bid, hopefully in the next couple months, with a start date of later this year. And here's a floor plan if we haven't seen it before. The bottom of the page shows the front entrance. That'd be the landside entrance where you actually come into the lobby. And then to the left are all the administration side, with the public side more on the right side, with restrooms, a waiting area, a training office or a conference room, a break room, potentially even a little office space there. Another project that we have that's currently in design is the PAPI project. Just an update on that we are in discussion with our airport district office in adding a little segment to this, which was adding something that came out of our last runway safety action team meeting. And this was something that our former air traffic control manager and our current air traffic control manager recommends, that we take a look at runway guard lights at our hotspots so that we can just get a little bit more indication. If you've probably, I don't know who's familiar, they call them wigwag lights, the official term is runway guard lights, but they alternate and kind of flash and get your attention before you go onto an active runway. And that's something that, just considering the level, I think Jim Starley, you mentioned this, Member Starley, you mentioned this, just about how complex the airport is. And with so many intersecting runways and taxiways at kind of odd angles, just thought it was another way. The RSAT working group thought this was another way to get pilots' attention, as they're, especially the ones that aren't familiar with our airport, and even those who may just kind of, even the ones that are. But this project specifically, the original intent was to replace the generator, which you see the picture on the left. That generator powers the entire airfield as well as the air traffic control tower. So it is, it's 20 years old. It can't provide more than 72 hours of endurance with the full fuel. So a newer, upgraded, larger tank, more modern generator. We're hoping to get that, as well as indication lights in the tower. The current generator, it can kick on and it does a great job, but the air traffic control tower, the folks in the tower have no idea that they're on commercial or generator power. So sometimes it's good for them to know so that they can understand if they're on backup power or not. So the new system in our design efforts, that's what we're going to be doing. The PAPIs, there's a little kind of design there, drawing. For those of you who, most everybody in the room is a pilot or has understanding of what PAPIs are, but there's kind of a little graphic of how they work. These PAPIs, our current PAPIs, have incandescent bulbs. So they're not replaceable. You can't replace them anymore. They require an upgrade. So we're going with LEDs, longer life, less power. A lot of our airfield lighting is that way. So this design is about the 60% mark, but we've decided to push funding requests to actually construct till next year so we can try to get those runway guard lights in. This is a very cool thing, and Jacob's put a lot of this efforts into updating the historic side of our website. But as you know, our airport's named after, or not named, but has been named after Jack Bolt Field, or named after Jack Bolt. Jack Bolt, for those of you who don't know, check out our website. There's a whole very, very well done write-up about him and his impacts to aviation and also to the community here. As a resident and an attorney here in New Smyrna Beach, he's being nominated to the Naval Aviation Hall of Fame next month. So this is a big deal. His son reached out to us and asked, is there any way that you can honor my dad by putting his name and getting his name on charts? We actually went in to the airport master record and requested that the official name of the airport be changed to New Smyrna Beach Municipal Jack Bolt Field. And I'm excited to say that that has happened. And as you can see on all aviation charts, and it is starting to pop up everywhere, from sectionals, approach plates, everywhere, it'll say New Smyrna Beach Municipal Jack Bolt Field. So really cool and
That's awesome.
kind of a cool thing to honor and recognize that gentleman who's.
I love that. That's great.
Just really quickly, our aviation gallons. I know we talked a little bit about this last time, but this is our just year-to-date, so fiscal year, October through March. So these are our gallons. So I divided up between Epic, Flight Academy, retail, which is the fuel that we sell at this farm, and Airgate, and then our total on the right-hand side. So if you'll see, you have 2023, 2024, and 2025. That's comparing the same time periods year over year. So October through March each year, those are gallons, how much fuel we've sold, avgas and jet fuel. Notice that those numbers are down a little bit for Epic. I know that from speaking to their staff that they have experienced some cancellations just due to the fact that the weather isn't agreeing with what airports or what runways are available because of the construction. And so that's really unfortunate that, we have these growing pains. We're trying to get through it as quick as we can, and hopefully it doesn't have a long-term impact, but it's necessary for us to come back into compliance with our approaches and to ensure the long-term stability of the airport. Retail gallons as well are a little bit down. Airgate gallons are about the same. They actually up from last year. And so total gallons, we're seeing just about 14,000 gallons down. But interesting, there seems to be a little bit of a trend there in our total gallons, as you can see. Now, to compare that to what we're actually, our profitability. Now, fuel has never been a tremendous source of revenue for the airport. The majority of revenue from the airport is through land and land leases and rent. But we did do an increase back in October. And so while our gallons are down, notice that our profitability is up just a little bit. And this is our gross margin. So it's not necessarily what we're actually taking in, but it is actually what we're actually making there. So a little bit more across the board, except for our retail, which has suffered, but it's still, our gallons are down, profitability is up.
When I look at these numbers and I look at the 2023 and 24 numbers, are those for at the same time during the year, or are those year
Same
totals?
exact time frame, yep. I'm comparing apples to apples, so
Okay.
October through March.
All right.
Just to get a little snapshot of where we're at. It's not the entire year.
Just want to make sure I was reading it right. Okay.
Airport operations did the same thing, October through March. And again, you can kind of see January and February, definitely a little decrease in our operations there from last year. And again, since it stands to reason that, Epic being the majority of our operations here, they're down, the airport's going to be down. So not a significant drop, but a little drop there the last couple months. A big kind of announcement here. Very proud to announce that Jacob was nominated and won the award for Volusia League of Cities Employee of the Year in Public Works and Development, Public Works and Utilities. Really big honor. This is a Volusia County recognition, so a county-wide recognition, and so very proud of him. Very proud to go see him accept this award on the May 22nd at the League of Cities awards banquet. So really cool. I know you all join me in being proud and recognizing all the hard work that he puts in year-round, all the different things that he does to contribute to the airport. And just want to thank him for his efforts and say congratulations a little bit early. But
Awesome.
Congratulations.
And with that, I think we covered a lot of it already, but kind of now that we've had time to digest the entire session and everything we threw at you.
David, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, but I'm just curious how the Facebook page is doing in terms of number of...
Yeah, so we've got, I think we're up to 187 followers. So it's slow, it's gradual. We try to do posts. I should pull it up, but I could definitely send you, I don't know if any of you follow it, but we've got some cool stuff out there. Trying to get regular updates about at least every week or so, including advertising this new time. And the city will share some of our posts. One of the cool things that I wish I should have brought, but I didn't think to do it, was actually we made a video showing our taxiway alpha project. If you guys are on Facebook, check that out.
Yep.
It shows the before and after.
That was a drone?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Hey, I can't wait to go to the party to celebrate you.
Glad to have you.
All right, get your pencil out. I just had, you said you were already in work on getting the night approaches back so that we can have them as soon as we possibly can for 2-5. Okay, just want to make sure how important that is. That's one of the things I hear more probably than anything, even noise. Okay. Safety. We had the event not too long ago with the airplane that hung the fence and flipped upside down there on Sunset or Turnbull?
Turnbull, yep.
Turnbull it was. And we don't have an agenda item for safety events like that. If somebody crashes through the fence or we have an event like that, I'm just asking if it makes sense to add an item to this agenda that's just safety. And if there's none, there's none. But if we have an event, then there could have been people that weren't here when that happened that don't know that happened. Even though we've got RSAT, we typically as a group don't get to go to RSAT, okay? I've been a couple of times, but my schedule has not allowed me to go. Does anybody else agree that we should have an agenda item that is safety items and whatever has happened within that last quarter, that at least so we know?
It's a broom idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for us. I mean, it's, to the extent that, we've spent time, we're looking at various SMS programs for the airport, and we've had all of our staff appropriately trained, and we're doing continued training for first aid. Not that we're necessarily firefighters or police officers or first responders in that sense, but we could very well be the first on site, and we've had them all trained, and they now have all first aid kits that are complete with pressure dressings, tourniquets, medication, things of that nature. So that way, in the event of potentially, blood loss,
I think that's great, but
Yes.
if we have an event, we should know that. If there was some significant training of our airport personnel, and you kind of covered it with the fire department visit in this one, but I'd like to see a specific agenda item for training on safety.
Here's some ideas. I want to see if you, bird strikes,
Yes.
okay? Maybe fueling, I don't know how deep you want to go there. So one of the things that we'll be looking at is any incident where that it could be through our SMS program. So we have a program called Aero Simple. There is a portion of it that's SMS, and that actually has to do with people being able to report incidents, but we're still looking at that. But so we have, like, let's say somebody fuels in a hangar. Okay, so we had that recently, and that's obviously got the fire marshal involved.
That's exactly the kind of stuff that I would like to see
Fueling
under a
incident.
safety section on our agenda, and just
We found out.
bulletize it.
Yep, and so I mean I think that'd be great. Now that's also be a little accountability as well, because there's we had a tenant that we found out hadn't trained one of their fuel technicians. So there's little things like that probably should be on the record, maybe.
Okay,
So,
all right, well, so we'll do
We're all on
that,
the
starting
same
with the
page.
next meeting, we'll have a section in the agenda for safety items, safety, whatever you want to call it, concerns or whatever, but it's a safety update, okay? And if there are any operational events, and most of the stuff you listed falls into that, whether it's fueling or a approach or departure event or whatever, but I'd like to see a safety section in this.
yeah, we have like
On the runway
Oh,
guard
go
lights, Jim had a lot of energy about that, okay, before he left. And I think that that's something that should be one of the next things that we're pursuing is making that happen, okay? We're a big enough airport there. Jim did an excellent job talking about the concerns, the complexity, and I think that that's kind of moved itself now up higher on our radar screen, and I'm not sure from what I heard from you guys today exactly where that stands. Is it funded? Is it got a schedule? I'd like to see some more detail on those runway guard lights, okay?
I can give you an update.
No. Okay, next time it'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay, but I want to see some specifics that's got maybe a timeline with it, so that's the way I like to do things. That's, we bring it up onto the screen, we keep our focus on it, and we'll get there with it eventually, okay? On Jack Bolt's event that's going to take place in Pensacola, is that something that civilians can attend, or is that a military-only activity?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't remember exactly. He made it seem like it was open to the public, but I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, because there's a lot of people in New Smyrna that even if it's just a few people drive up in a car for, you know, to attend that, he's got a lot of good friends that are still here, okay? That I'd like to know if it's possible for civilians to attend, and if we can get any information on that, okay? And from comment standpoint, congratulations to you guys for everything you're doing with the construction. You guys have a major effort going on out there, and have for a year or two now, okay? You guys, with the building of the hangars and the taxiways and everything that's going on, you guys are doing an awesome job of managing that. And my congratulations to you, young man.
Thank you, Jim.
I don't know who was at the Memorial Day ceremony last year at the Brandon Center, but Jacob had the opportunity to speak and talk about his experience as a veteran of the Marine Corps, and he did a very impressive job with that, so I'm not surprised that you got the accolade there. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, the only comment I have is I think you gentlemen are doing, and ladies are doing, a wonderful job running this airport. It's fun to watch, and it's easy to be a tenant at an airport that's run that way, and keep up the good work, and let us know what we can do to help you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, I'm going to close this meeting at 6:17.